Chosen one, stop. Before you hear another word, I need you to do something for me. If there are people around you right now, this message is not for them. Put your headphones in, turn down whatever else is playing, and if you can, find a space where it is just you and the sound of my voice. What I am about to share was not placed here by accident. It was placed here because of what is approaching in your life within the next 24 hours, and you need to hear this without distraction, without noise, without anyone else's energy in the room. Take one real breath right now, not the shallow kind you have been surviving on for weeks. I mean the kind that fills your entire chest, expands your lungs completely, and then releases like something heavy finally being set down. Let it out. Chosen one. What you are about to hear was not meant for everyone. It was placed in your path because of what is approaching on March 31st, and what you do in the hours between now and then will determine whether you step into the shift that has been building for months, or whether you walk right past the door that was opened specifically for you. God has given you a direct instruction, and that instruction is silence. Complete, absolute, unbroken silence. Not because you have nothing to say. You and I both know you have plenty to say. Not because your voice does not matter, because it matters more than you realize, but because what is being assembled in the invisible realm right now requires your mouth to be closed so that your spirit can be fully open to receive it. The people around you will not understand this. Some of them will be offended by your quiet. They will read your silence as coldness, as arrogance, as punishment. They will take it personally. Some will push harder than they have in months, asking questions designed to pull words out of you, creating conflicts that demand a response, testing your composure in ways that feel almost calculated. And every fiber of your flesh will scream to answer them, to explain yourself, to set the record straight, to defend your name against the version of you that someone else has been telling. But I hear the Spirit saying, do not break formation. Do not give in to the pressure. Your silence on March 31st is not a sign of weakness. It is the most powerful decision you will make this entire year. Every word from this point forward is a direct briefing for what is about to happen in your life. And I need your full attention for what comes next, because I know you feel it. Right now, as you are listening to me, your body is telling a truth that your mouth has been holding back. Check your jaw. Is it tight? Have you been clenching it without even realizing? Grinding your teeth in your sleep, waking up with a soreness you cannot explain. Now notice your shoulders. Are they sitting somewhere near your ears, carrying a tension that started the moment you decided to stop defending yourself? And that heaviness in your chest, the one that has been sitting right between your ribs like a closed fist for days, maybe weeks. That feeling you keep trying to breathe through, but it refuses to leave. That is not anxiety. That is not stress from work or lack of sleep. That is the physical weight of obedience. Your body has been holding every word you were commanded not to speak, every defense you chose to swallow, every truth you buried to keep the peace. And that weight, as exhausting as it has been, is not random. It is not meaningless. It has a purpose that is about to become very clear to you. If you recognize that weight right now, if something in your body just confirmed what I said, type the words "I am still here" in the comments. Not for me, for you. To mark this moment in your spirit as the point where the confusion starts to end and the understanding begins. Because I need to be honest with you about something, what you have been doing, this silence, this restraint, this impossible discipline of keeping your mouth closed when everything inside you was on fire. Most people could not do what you have been doing. Most people would have broken by now. They would have sent the message. They would have made the phone call. They would have fired back with the truth and felt justified doing it. But you did not. Something held you in place. something deeper than willpower, something stronger than pride, something that overrode every natural instinct you have and kept your lips sealed when every nerve in your body was begging you to speak. And that something is not stubbornness. It is not fear. It is not passivity. It is divine instruction. And I am going to prove it to you before this message ends. But I need you to stay with me all the way through, because there are 3 things coming that will change how you understand everything you have been carrying. First, I am going to show you exactly why God commanded this silence at this specific time. Not last month, not next year, but right now, and the reason involves something happening in your brain at this very moment that science has only recently been able to measure. Second, you are going to receive a specific protocol. I call it the Silent Arsenal. It is a step-by-step framework for March 31st that will show you how to move through that day in a way that turns your silence from endurance into activation. And third, before this message ends, I am going to speak an activation over your life. Not a regular prayer. An activation ceremony that seals everything that has been built in your quiet season and commissions you into what is waiting on the other side. Every one of those 3 things is coming, but only if you stay until the end. Now let me show you the first truth about your silence that almost no one understands. And once you hear it, everything you have been feeling, the exhaustion, the doubt, the loneliness of holding it all inside, every bit of it is about to make sense. Most people confuse silence with patience. They think when you go quiet, you are simply waiting, just enduring the clock until something changes. But what I am about to show you will completely dismantle that misunderstanding. And it starts with a picture I need to paint for you, because I believe you have lived this exact moment. It is late. The house has gone still, but your mind has not. You are lying in the dark, staring at the ceiling, and somewhere between midnight and 3 in the morning, a conversation begins playing in your head. Not a real conversation, the one you wish you had, the one where you finally say everything you have been holding back. In this version, every word lands perfectly. Every point is proven, every lie corrected, every accusation answered with precision. You rehearse it over and over, sharpening each line, and for a moment it feels so satisfying that your heart actually races. And then you open your eyes and realize nothing has changed. You are still alone in the dark, still silent, still holding every word inside your body like a fire with no way out. And something deep inside you whispers a question you have been afraid to ask out loud. Is this even worth it? Does anyone notice what this is costing me? I need you to hear me right now. Yes, it is worth it. And yes, someone has been watching every second of it. Not from the sidelines, from the throne. Now here is the truth that changes everything about how you see your quiet season. Your silence is not patience. Do not confuse the two, because they are fundamentally different things. Patience says, I am waiting until conditions improve. Patience is passive. Patience sits and endures and hopes that time alone will fix it. But what God asked of you is not patience. What God asked of you is obedience, and obedience is active. Obedience is a decision you make every single morning when you wake up and choose again. Today I will not speak. Today I will not defend myself. Today I will not explain. Today I will let God handle what my words cannot. That is not weakness. That is one of the most powerful acts of spiritual warfare available to a human being, because every time you choose silence over reaction, you are declaring to the heavens that you trust the one who gave the command more than you trust your own ability to fix the situation. And when heaven sees that kind of trust, it does not ignore it. It responds. Let me prove this to you. because there are 6 signs, 6 undeniable, physical, measurable markers that confirm you are not just being quiet out of fear or exhaustion. You are in a divinely commanded silence season, and I want you to count how many of these you recognize in your own life right now. The first sign is the fatigue that sleep cannot touch. You go to bed tired, you wake up tired. 8 hours, 10 hours. It makes no difference. This is not regular exhaustion. This tiredness lives in your bones, in your spirit, in a part of you that no pillow can reach. It is the weight of carrying words that were never released, defenses that were never spoken, truths that were swallowed whole and are now sitting heavy in your system. Your body is processing what your mouth was not permitted to express, and that kind of internal work drains energy in ways that have nothing to do with how much you slept last night. The second sign is the waves of emotion that arrive without warning and without explanation. 1 hour you feel at peace, almost strangely calm. The next hour, tears are falling, and you have no idea why. There was no trigger, no bad news, no painful memory, just a wave that rises from somewhere beneath your ribs and crashes before you can make sense of it. That is not instability. That is not a sign that something is wrong with you. That is your spirit releasing pressure in the only way it can, when your voice has been sealed shut by divine command. The third sign is a sudden intolerance for things that never used to bother you. Conversations that were once normal now feel like they are draining the life out of you. People you used to enjoy being around now exhaust you within minutes. Small talk feels almost physically painful, as if your spirit is allergic to anything shallow. Drama that you once participated in without thinking twice now makes your skin crawl. Your tolerance has changed because your frequency has changed. You are no longer operating at the same level you were before the silence began, and your entire system knows it, even if the people around you have not caught on yet. The fourth sign is the dreams. Vivid, intense, sometimes disturbing dreams that feel more real than your waking life. Some of you are having conversations in your sleep that your silence will not allow during the day. Some of you are dreaming of people who disappeared from your life years ago. Some of you are visiting places in your dreams that feel impossibly familiar, even though you have never been there. That is not random brain activity. That is your spirit doing the work at night that it cannot do during the day, processing the weight, sorting the chaos, preparing the ground for what is coming. The fifth sign is the tension that has taken up residence in very specific places in your body. Your jaw aches for no medical reason. Your shoulders refuse to drop, no matter how many times you try to relax them. Your chest carries a tightness that is not illness, but holding. Some of you have been getting headaches that started around the exact same time your silence began, and no amount of water or rest has fixed them. These are not coincidences. This is your body physically containing a spiritual weight. Every word you held back created pressure, and that pressure has been building with nowhere to go. And the sixth sign, the one that catches most chosen ones completely off guard, is the strange and sudden reappearance of people from your past. Old friends reaching out after months of nothing. Former partners sending messages at odd hours. Family members who ignored you for an entire season, suddenly demanding your attention. People from chapters you thought were closed, showing up at your door as if someone sent them. And every single one of them arrives with a conversation designed to pull words out of you, to test whether you will break your silence for them, to see if they can crack the seal. That is not coincidence. That is confirmation. The testing is real precisely because the assignment is real. Now listen carefully. If you recognize 3 or more of those signs in your own life, this message did not find you by accident. You are in a sacred silence season, and everything you have been experiencing, every sleepless night, every unexplained tear, every wave of exhaustion, All of it has a name, a reason, and a purpose. Because what felt like isolation was actually insulation. What felt like punishment was actually positioning. What felt like abandonment was actually advancement. And what felt like silence was actually strategy. You are not the first person to carry this weight. Thousands of years ago, there was a man named Joseph, betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold like property to strangers, and then locked in a prison for years for a crime he never committed. And in all that injustice, all that pain, all that time, do you know what the scriptures record Joseph saying in his own defense? Nothing. Not a single word. No public statement. No letter of explanation. No retaliation. Joseph sat in that cell in complete silence, while the world outside wrote its own version of his story, a version that was completely wrong. And that silence, that impossible, agonizing, lonely silence, was the exact container God needed to prepare him for the palace. Because when Joseph finally stood before Pharaoh, he did not need to explain himself. He did not need to argue his case or defend his character. His years of silence had built something that no speech could have constructed. They built authority. They built discernment so sharp it could interpret what no one else in the kingdom could understand. They built a direct line to the voice of God that was crystal clear because it had been forged in the quiet. That is what your silence is building right now. Not weakness, not submission. Spiritual infrastructure strong enough to carry the weight of what is coming for you. If that landed somewhere deep in your chest right now, type the words, "I see it now," in the comments. Seal that recognition into your spirit before we go further. Now, what I just showed you would be enough on its own to change how you look at your silent season. But this is only the surface truth, because there is something happening right now in your brain, in the actual neurons and frequencies of your mind, that turns everything I just said from spiritual principle into measurable science. Researchers at some of the most respected institutions in the world have documented what happens when a human brain enters an extended period of strategic silence, and what they found will explain not just why you have been feeling the way you have, but what your mind is physically becoming during this season. The silence you have been enduring is not just building your spirit. It is literally rewiring your brain. And what your brain is becoming on the other side of this quiet is the key to everything that unfolds after March 31st. And as I prepare to show you what science has discovered about what silence does to the human brain, I hear the Father saying something directly to you right now. These are the words being placed on my heart, and I want you to receive them exactly as they come. I did not silence you to punish you. I silenced you to rewire you. Every word you held back was not lost. It was redirected inward to rebuild what the noise of this world dismantled. Be still, and know that I am doing something you cannot yet see, but will soon feel in every area of your life. Now let me show you why those words carry a weight that goes far beyond spiritual encouragement. Because there is something hidden in the original language of Scripture that most people have never been told. And when you understand it, you will never see your silence the same way again. In the original Hebrew, there are two different words for silence. The first is sheket. Sheket simply means the absence of sound. It is passive. It is what happens when someone has nothing to say. But there is another word, and this is the one that applies to you. The word is chasha, and chasha does not mean the absence of sound. Chasha is a military term. It means tactical concealment, strategic positioning. It is the same word used when an army hides its forces before a decisive strike, when a scout goes dark before a critical mission, when a warrior masks his position so the enemy cannot calculate his next move. When God tells you Chasha, He is not asking you to simply be quiet. He is deploying you into stealth mode. He is telling you to go dark so that what is being assembled around your life can be completed without interference, without premature exposure, and without the enemy having any way to intercept what is coming. That is why the provocations have intensified. That is why people who used to leave you alone are suddenly desperate for your response. They are trying to get you to reveal your coordinates. And every time you stay silent, every time you refuse to react, you remain invisible to the forces that would love nothing more than to disrupt what God is constructing in the quiet. Now, here is where this gets extraordinary. Because what I just described to you in spiritual language, science has confirmed in the laboratory. Neuroscientists at some of the leading research universities in the world have been measuring what happens to the human brain during extended periods of intentional silence, and what they found explains everything you have been feeling. When a person enters sustained, strategic silence, the brain begins to lower its cortisol production. Cortisol is the stress hormone, the chemical that keeps your body locked in survival mode, constantly scanning for threats, constantly reactive, constantly on edge. As cortisol drops, something remarkable happens. The amygdala, the part of your brain that controls your fight or flight response, the part that has been hijacking your decisions and convincing you to react every time someone provokes you, that mechanism begins to quiet down. And as it quiets, another frequency begins to rise. Scientists call it the gamma brainwave. Gamma is the highest frequency the human brain can produce. It is the frequency associated with genius-level insight, with supernatural clarity, with the state that researchers describe as flow, where solutions appear without effort, where intuition becomes so sharp it feels like a sixth sense, where connections between ideas that seemed unrelated suddenly become obvious. Children are born with gamma fully active. Every child. It is the reason young children learn at staggering speeds, absorb languages effortlessly, and create with a freedom that most adults have completely lost. But starting around the age of 7, something happens. The educational system, the social conditioning, the noise and stimulation of modern life begins to suppress gamma. Scientists call this the decline effect. And by adulthood, most people are operating on brainwave frequencies so far below gamma that they have no access to the genius, the intuition, and the clarity they were born with. But here is what changes everything for you. Strategic silence is one of the fastest known methods of reactivating gamma. When you remove the noise, when you stop the reactive cycle of defending, explaining, and arguing, your brain interprets that silence as permission to reset. And in that reset, gamma begins to return. This is not theory. This has been measured in EEG laboratories at institutions, including MIT, Princeton, and Stanford. Your silence is not just protecting you spiritually, it is literally rebuilding your brain from the inside out. And I have to ask you something right now that I want you to sit with for a moment. When was the last time you felt genuinely sharp? When was the last time ideas came to you effortlessly, the way they used to when you were young? When was the last time you made a decision and felt it click into place in your bones without a single doubt? That sharpness has a name. It is called gamma, and your silence is bringing it back. Now there is a tool, a 7-minute audio ritual based on this exact science, developed by a neuroscientist named Dr. Robert Lake after 34 years of research, that accelerates this gamma reactivation process far beyond what silence alone can achieve. I am going to share the full details with you soon. But first, you need to understand how to use your silence strategically on March 31st, because without the right framework, even obedient silence can lose its power. This is what I call the Silent Arsenal Protocol. 3 specific steps for March 31st that will turn your silence from passive endurance into active spiritual deployment. The first step is the 7-minute frequency reset. On the morning of March 31st, before you check your phone, before you open a single message, before you speak a single word to anyone, sit in complete silence for 7 minutes. Not scrolling in silence, not thinking in silence, actual silence. Eyes closed, breathing steady, allowing your brain to enter the gamma space we just discussed. Those 7 minutes are the ignition sequence for everything else that day. They set your neurological baseline so that when the provocations come, and they will come, your brain is operating from clarity instead of from cortisol. The second step is the observation post. Throughout March 31st, carry a mental record of what you notice, not what you feel, what you notice. Synchronicities, numbers that repeat, people who appear unexpectedly, thoughts that arrive without effort, dreams from the night before that suddenly make sense. These are not coincidences, these are coordinates. Your silence has cleared the channel, and what comes through that cleared channel on March 31st is intelligence you will need for the season ahead. The third step is the sealed mouth commitment. For the full 24 hours of March 31st, you commit to saying nothing that is not absolutely necessary. No defending, no explaining, no correcting the record, no responding to provocations, no matter how perfectly crafted they are to pull you back in. If someone pushes, you breathe. If someone misrepresents you, you observe. If someone tries to weaponize your silence against you, you hold your ground, because on this specific day, every word you refuse to speak becomes fuel for what is being activated in the unseen realm. Before I continue, I want to pause here and ask you something. If what I just shared brought clarity to something you have been struggling to understand, gently press the like button, not for me, so that this message can reach someone else tonight, someone who has been holding their silence alone and needs to know it is not for nothing. Someone who is one provocation away from breaking. Your small action might be the exact confirmation their spirit has been waiting for. Now consider this. David was anointed as a teenager. The oil touched his head, and the heavens confirmed his identity as king. But do you know how long David waited in silence before he sat on that throne? Years. Not weeks. Years. Hunted through the wilderness by a man who wanted him dead, sleeping in caves, leading a band of broken men through the desert, and at every turn having the opportunity to take the crown by force. Twice, David stood close enough to kill Saul. Twice he had the legal, moral, and strategic right to end the chase. And twice he chose silence. He chose to let God handle what his sword could have finished in seconds. And that silence, those impossible years of restraint, are the reason David is remembered not just as a king, but as a man after God's own heart. His silence was not wasted time. It was the deepest season of formation he ever walked through. And then there was Esther, a woman placed in a palace for a purpose she did not yet understand, and told to hide her identity, to keep silent about who she really was. Not because her identity was shameful, but because the timing had not yet arrived for it to be revealed. Esther's silence protected her assignment until the exact appointed day when speaking would save an entire nation. One day too early, and the revelation would have been dismissed. One day too late, and the window would have closed. Her silence was not fear. It was precision. That your silence is activating something measurable, and that is not coincidence. That your brain is physically shifting its frequency during this season, and that is not coincidence. That this message found you tonight with these exact words, at this exact moment. And that is not coincidence. If your spirit just confirmed something, if what you heard in this section settled into a place deeper than your intellect, type the words, "I receive this." Let that declaration mark this moment in your journey. Now, what I just showed you would already be enough to transform how you see your silent season. But there is something I have not told you yet about March 31st specifically, about what that date represents in the pattern of divine timing, about why God did not say March 29th or April 2nd, but specifically the 31st. And when you understand it, something inside you is going to shift in a way that is almost uncomfortable. Because the truth about March 31st is not what you think it is. March 31st is not the day you are finally allowed to stop being silent. I need you to hear this clearly, because most people will misunderstand this. They think the silence has an expiration date and that March 31st is when they get their voice back. But that is not what is happening. March 31st is not an ending, it is a launch. There is a difference between permission and deployment. Permission says you can. Deployment says you are sent. Permission is relief. Deployment is authority. And what God has been doing in your silence is not preparing you for a moment of relief. He has been loading you. Every word you held back became ammunition for what is ahead. Every defense you buried became structural material for the foundation you are about to stand on. Every explanation you chose not to give became a layer of authority that no argument in the world could have produced. March 31st is the day the loading phase completes. It is the day the weapon is fully assembled. And what comes out of your mouth after that day, when you do speak, will carry a weight and a precision that would have been impossible without this season of restraint. For those entering this season, the shift will not look like revenge. It will not sound like retaliation. It will be something far more powerful. When you finally speak, people will feel something different in your words. Not volume, not aggression, gravity. The kind of gravity that only forms inside someone who sat in silence long enough to let God rebuild their voice from the inside out. Now, I need to address something directly, because there is a reason the provocations have increased recently, and it has nothing to do with bad luck or difficult people. The intensity of what has been coming against you over the past weeks is not random. It is precisely proportional to the size of what is being prepared on the other side of your silence. Think about it. Why would forces of opposition waste energy on someone whose silence does not matter? Why would sudden conflicts appear with people who were calm for months? Why would old wounds be reopened, old arguments resurrected, old accusations recycled at this exact moment? Because the adversary cannot stop what God has ordained. He does not have that authority. But what he can do is provoke you into breaking formation prematurely. Because the moment you speak out of turn, the moment you defend yourself before the appointed time, you reveal your position. You expose the strategy. You hand over intelligence to forces that have been trying to locate your weak point for months. Your silence has been making you invisible to the opposition, and they are desperate to get you to reappear. But there is something else I need to name right now, because it might be the heaviest thing you are carrying, and it has nothing to do with the people who are against you. It has to do with the people you love. The guilt. That silent, relentless guilt that whispers to you every time you pull away from someone, every time you do not answer a call, every time you choose to protect your peace instead of meeting someone else's expectations. You feel guilty for not explaining why you have changed, guilty for setting boundaries that look like rejection, guilty for becoming unavailable to people who built their routines around your constant availability, guilty for choosing silence when someone clearly wants you to engage. And the worst kind of guilt, the kind that keeps you up at night more than any enemy ever could, is the guilt of knowing that your growth is disappointing people who love you, people who did nothing wrong, people who simply cannot understand why you are different now. I know that weight, and I need to tell you something that might feel like the first breath of fresh air you have had in weeks. You are allowed to outgrow conversations that no longer match your frequency. You are allowed to protect your silence, even when it disappoints people who expect access to you. You are allowed to say nothing when everything inside you wants to explain. You are allowed to let God defend your character instead of defending it yourself. You are allowed to be completely misunderstood during your formation season, and you do not owe anyone an apology for becoming who you were always intended to be. Boundaries are not betrayal. Distance is not rejection, and silence is not cruelty. These are the tools of someone being prepared for something that the people around them do not yet have the capacity to see. When the preparation is complete, they will understand. But you cannot pause your transformation to make everyone comfortable. That is not your assignment. If those words just release something you have been holding in your chest, type the words, "I release the guilt," in the comments. Let this be the moment you set it down. You have carried it long enough. Now I want to tell you about someone. I will not share his name, but his story needs to be heard because it mirrors what many of you are walking through right now. 9 months ago, a man lost everything in what felt like a single week. His business partner betrayed a contract. A project that represented 3 years of work collapsed overnight. Friends he thought would stand with him went silent. And in the middle of that devastation, in the exact moment when every instinct told him to fight back, to expose, to go public with what had been done to him, he felt a clear, unmistakable instruction in his spirit. Be still. Say nothing. Do not defend yourself. And for 40 days, he obeyed. He deleted his social media. He stopped attending the meetings where people discussed his situation. He stopped answering calls from people who wanted his side of the story. He sat in a silence so complete that some people assumed he had left the country. On day 38, a company he had never contacted, a company that had no connection to anyone in his previous network, called him with an offer. A contract worth more than double what he had lost. They told him they had heard about his work through a channel he could not trace, and that they had been looking for someone with exactly his expertise. He did not find that opportunity. It found him, and it found him because his silence had cleared the path for something that his noise would have blocked. He proved himself in silence before he promoted himself in public. Now remember earlier when I mentioned a 7-minute ritual based on the neuroscience of gamma reactivation, developed by Dr. Robert Lake, a neuroscientist with 34 years of experience studying brainwave frequencies. Let me tell you why this matters to you right now, in this specific season. If you have been feeling like your brain is operating behind a fog, like the sharpness you once had as a child has been replaced with something slower and heavier, there is a reason. Neuroscientists call it the decline effect. The gamma brainwave, the frequency responsible for genius-level clarity, intuition, and what researchers describe as miraculous states of flow, that frequency was fully active when you were young, but the noise of modern life, the educational system, the constant stimulation, it suppressed that frequency over time. And for chosen ones, this hits harder than it does for most people because your gamma was naturally stronger to begin with. That gap between who you once were and who you feel like today, the sense that your best thinking is trapped behind a wall you cannot see, that is the gamma gap. And it is measurable. Dr. Robert Lake spent over 3 decades developing a technology called brain entrainment, a method of using specific sound frequencies embedded in a 7-minute audio track to guide the brain back into gamma. Not meditation, because meditation can take months or years to produce the same result, and most people cannot sustain the practice. Not biofeedback therapy, which costs $300 per session. Not home biofeedback equipment, which runs over $7,000. A 7-minute audio track you listen to with headphones once a day that begins working from the very first session. The standard price for this is $49. But Dr. Lake made a decision to offer it for $39 specifically for people who find it through messages like this one, people he believes are genuinely ready for the shift and not just casually browsing. That $39 includes the core audio technology plus 4 additional tools at no extra cost. A children's version called Genius Child, a guided visualization covering 4 areas of life, a foundational book on wealth principles that normally sells for $20 on its own, and an infographic designed to be printed and placed where you will see it daily. And everything is backed by a full 100% money-back guarantee. No questions, no conditions. But I need to warn you about something important. Because of the attention this technology has received, there are now counterfeit versions circulating online, websites that use the name but do not contain the actual brain entrainment technology embedded in the audio. They are just regular sound files with no scientific mechanism behind them. The only way to ensure you receive the authentic version with the full technology, all 4 bonuses, and the money-back protection is through the link I have placed in the description and in the pinned comment of this message. Do not search for it on Amazon or Spotify or anywhere else, because what you find there will not be the real thing. If your spirit resonates with this, if something in you recognized it as part of your recalibration during this silent season, the link is below. Only if you feel led. This is not pressure. This is provision. Now, before I move into the final revelation, the one that will redefine who you are and what your silence has made you, I want you to know something. Before this message ends, I am going to speak an activation over your life that I believe will stay with you long after you leave this space. It is not a regular prayer. It is a commissioning. And everything we have walked through together, the obedience, the brain rewiring, the deployment, all of it has been leading to that moment. Stay with me. We are almost there. Take a breath right now. The hardest part is behind us. Now let me show you who you really are. And now I hear the Father speaking again, and I want you to receive these words with everything you have left in you tonight. I did not take your voice away. I was upgrading it. When you speak after this silence, mountains will move that would not have moved before. I was not punishing you with quiet. I was forging your words in fire, so that when they come, nothing and no one will be able to stand against them. This is the truth that changes everything. The truth that makes every sleepless night, every swallowed defense, every tear that fell in silence, all make sense in a single moment. And I need you to hear it slowly, because this is not information, this is revelation. Your silence is not a waiting room. It is a throne room. Every single day that you sat in obedience, that you held your tongue when the world demanded noise, that you chose restraint when your flesh was screaming for release, you were not being tested, you were being enthroned. And nobody witnessed it. No one in your circle saw the coronation. No one on the outside heard the shift. But heaven recorded every second of it. The silence was the ceremony, and you have already been crowned. Now, let me show you how everything connects. Because what I shared with you in the beginning was not 3 separate truths. It was one truth wearing 3 different faces. The first face was obedience. You learned that your silence was not patience, but a direct response to divine command. The second face was rewiring. You learned that your silence was physically rebuilding your brain, reactivating a frequency that the noise of this world had suppressed, since you were a child. The third phase was deployment. You learned that March 31st is not the end of your silence, but the launch of everything your silence constructed. And now, the deepest phase, the one beneath all three, the one that holds everything together. Your silence was the mechanism by which you ascended to the version of yourself that was always meant to exist. You did not just obey, you did not just rewire, you did not just prepare for deployment. You became someone new. And the old version of you, the one who needed to defend, who needed to explain, who needed to be understood, that version completed its purpose. It carried you as far as it could. But it was never meant to carry you where you are going. March 31st is not the day everything changes. March 31st is the day you discover that everything already changed. Inside the silence, while no one was looking. Feel what is happening in your chest right now. The weight that was there at the beginning of this message, that closed fist between your ribs. Something is shifting. The tightness is loosening, not because the circumstances changed, because you changed. Something that was clenched for weeks is beginning to open. Let it, do not fight it. That is the feeling of someone who finally understands what they have been carrying and why. If every word I have spoken tonight has felt like it was written specifically for you, it was. And now I need to speak directly to who you are, not who you were, not who people think you are, but the identity that was forged in the fire of your quiet season. You are the spiritual warrior, the one who holds ground when everyone else retreats, the one who does not fight with volume but with presence. You stood in the storm and did not flinch. You absorbed the blows that were designed to break you and turned them into strength that the enemy never anticipated. You are the seer, the one who perceives what others cannot. You saw through the provocations. You recognized the patterns. You understood that what was happening on the surface was not the real battle. Your eyes have been opened in this silence, and they will never close again. You are the truth carrier. Your silence does not mean you have no truth. It means your truth is too powerful to be released before its time. The words you will speak after this season will not be reactive. They will not be defensive. They will carry a weight that rearranges rooms when you walk in, not because you are loud, but because something in your voice has been transformed by everything you chose not to say. You are the cycle breaker. Every generation before you reacted. Every generation before you defended. Every generation before you fought back with whatever weapon was closest. But you broke the pattern. You held the line. You chose silence when every ancestor before you chose war. And because you broke that cycle, a blessing that has been locked behind generations of noise is now free to enter your bloodline. Starting with you. Starting now. You are committed. You are commissioned. You are deployed. Now in your mind, I want you to do something. You do not need to move. You do not need to stand. Just picture this in your imagination right now. See yourself standing in a room of absolute silence. The walls are thick. The floor is solid beneath you. And through the glass on every side, you can see the people who misunderstood you, the ones who twisted your silence into guilt, the ones who tried to weaponize your quiet against you. They are watching, but they cannot enter. They see you standing in perfect peace, while the chaos surrounds them on the outside. And slowly, as you watch them press against the glass, you realize something that settles into your bones like gravity. Your silence was never surrender. It was sovereignty. You were never trapped in this room. You chose it, and now you own it. Now we close this message together, and I need you to understand that what comes next is not a regular prayer. This is an activation ceremony. This is a commissioning. You are not asking for something. You are stepping into something that has already been prepared. I am grateful tonight for the cost of your silence, for the nights you held words inside your body that would have justified you if you had spoken them, for the tears that replaced the arguments you never entered, for the mornings you woke up and chose obedience again when everything inside you was exhausted. That cost was not wasted, it was an offering, and it has been received. The Most High sees every conversation you did not enter, every message you did not send, every defense you swallowed, every lie you let stand, because correcting it would have broken the seal. He sees the faces of the people you protected with your silence, even when they did not know they were being protected. And he says, "Well done, well done." Now release. Release the need to be understood. Release the need to explain yourself. Release the need to be proven right. Release the old story that told you silence was weakness. Release the guilt of outgrowing people who expected you to stay small. Release the fear of what comes next. Release the belief that your suffering went unnoticed. Release it all. You have carried it long enough. Set it down. It is no longer yours to hold. Now I activate. I activate the full identity of the spiritual warrior who held ground in the fire. I activate the seer whose eyes are now open beyond what this world can comprehend. I activate the truth carrier whose voice, when it comes, will carry authority forged in sacred silence. I activate the cycle breaker whose obedience just unlocked a generational blessing that has waited years for someone brave enough to be quiet. I activate divine connections that have been delayed by premature words. I activate doors that were sealed by noise and are now swinging open because of your restraint. I activate clarity that cuts through every fog, every doubt, every question that has haunted your nights. I place protection over this rising. I cover what has been built in your silence from self-sabotage, from premature exposure, from the voices that will try to convince you tomorrow that tonight was just emotion. It was not emotion, it was activation, and it cannot be undone. Now declare this with the force of someone who has been enthroned in the quiet. I am the one who was silent when the world demanded noise. I am the one who was tested and did not break. I am the one who was enthroned in the quiet. I am the one whose silence shook the foundations of what was built against me. I am deployed. I am loaded. I am ready. And I am unstoppable, not because of what I said, because of what I chose not to say. Do not say amen yet. I want you to sit in this frequency for a moment, not because I am asking you to do anything, but because what was just spoken over you needs time to settle into your spirit. Let it move through your chest. Let it reach the places where the words were locked. Let your body feel what authority feels like when it is not earned by volume, but by the sacred discipline of silence. It is done. It is sealed. March 31st is not coming. It has already been written. We receive it. And so it is. Amen. One more thing before you go. You are not the same person you were when you pressed play tonight. Something shifted. You may not have the words for it yet, and that is fitting, because you have spent an entire season learning that the most powerful things do not need words. But your silence just became sovereign, and that sovereignty will follow you into tomorrow, into March 31st, and into every room you walk into after this moment. Remember who you are: the spiritual warrior, the seer, the truth carrier, the cycle breaker, the one who held the line when the pressure was unbearable and came out the other side, not broken but rebuilt. If this activation sealed something in your spirit tonight, type the words, I am deployed in the comments. Say it like you mean it. Say it like someone who has been silent for a reason and is now stepping into everything that silence built. If this message brought clarity to confusion, if it brought peace to chaos, if it brought authority to a silence that you were starting to doubt, let your like be your amen without words. If this message found you at the right moment, there are more words being prepared for your next season. Stay connected so they can find you when you need them most. And for those who felt called to the 7-minute gamma reactivation tool I shared earlier, the link to Dr. Lake's work is in the description and in the pinned comment. Only if your spirit confirms. Now, one final thing, and this matters. If someone came to mind while you were listening tonight, someone who has been unusually quiet lately, someone who has been pulling away from everyone without explanation, someone who has been carrying words inside them that they cannot release, someone who looks fine on the outside, but you just know that something deeper is happening beneath the surface. Send this to them. Text it, email it, share it, however you need to, because this might be the confirmation their silence has been waiting for. This might be the message that helps them understand that what they are going through is not punishment. It is preparation, and they are closer to the breakthrough than they have ever been. Your share is not a favor to me. It is a mission, and you may be the only bridge between that person and the truth they need to hear tonight. Go in peace, go in silence, go in power. March 31st is yours. You are not leaving a message, you are leaving a season.